live after the Republican debate. And now joining us is presidential candidate Ron Paul. So, Dr. Paul, I think you're making some progress. Newt Gingrich seemed to be moving in your direction.
Yeah, that was pretty neat. They've been kidding me about me going mainstream, but maybe mainstream is coming my way, and I like it. And they're doing a little bit of that on foreign policy, and I like that too. But one of these days, the country's going to wake up and do the things we need to do. And I understand you had Steve on there a little while ago, and he and I have worked on the gold issue, so I think we're making progress.
Though he was snickering on your foreign policy points, but I say a snicker is not an argument.
That's right, and we've avoided that because we are good friends, so we don't look for battles on foreign policy, but we do talk about monetary policy and spending and taxes and these other things. But my argument with others who talk about the war, and I've always argued that I'd win this argument, not because I'm going to give this great speech and I'm going to persuade a lot of people, but I think the economics will finally bring over a lot of the conservatives who have been anxious to fight these wars because we can't afford them anymore. And I threw out that number tonight. It literally has entered the trillions of dollars that we've been spending over these 10 years, and they're going to go on for decades. When you think of the thousands, hundreds of thousands of people applying for help at the Veterans Administration, and that just tears me up to see the tragedy there because I just don't believe these wars are necessary, and financially we can't afford them. And I think our country is going to come around and say enough is enough, and I think we'll bring our troops home.
What did you mean by the sixth war?
Well, it's hard to keep up with them. We're in Iraq, we're in Pakistan, we're in Afghanistan, we bomb Yemen, and we go into Somalia, whether it's 5 or 6 or 7, and, there's so many places that we're engaged, and I think when you start bombing a country, you're engaged in a war. And right now, and this has been going on for years, building the case for attacking Iran. And how many troops does Iran have out of their country? I didn't get a chance to make that point, but they haven't, and their traditions over thousands, at least hundreds of years, is not to invade neighbors.
And they haven't attacked anybody for more than 100 years. Iraq attacked them.
So why?
All right, I'm with you on that, but
warmongering.
And our audience is generally with you, and we're going to go to the audience in a moment. A couple of them would like to ask you a question, but I just want to argue about a couple issues. Immigration, you say no amnesty, no entitlements. I agree with that. But no amnesty ever, don't let them vote. We've got 10 million illegal immigrants here, and we're just going to keep them illegal?
Okay. That can be qualified, and I do that in my book where I have, quite a few pages to describe that. But I take the position you cannot round them up. There's 15 million. There's no way you can do it. If they commit criminal acts and they're here illegal, I think it's justified to send them back home. But I have too many cases that I've worked on where people, they're illegal technically, and they've been living here for 20 years. They hardly even speak Spanish. I have no interest in sending them back. I have no interest in punishing. They asked me about punishing the businessman in the churches because they help immigrants, and I think that is wrong. But I'm not too anxious to reward them with citizenship. You and I have to wait till we're 18, or when I was growing up, I had to wait till I was 21 to vote. So I'm not anxious for them to give the vote because that is very controversial, because there's a lot of antagonism over the idea, get the illegals in and they'll all vote for the Democrats. Believe me, that exists. It exists in California and exists in Texas. So that is the reason I am not anxious to reward them with citizenship. But I have a special status for those who have been here and they do not commit crimes. And I do think that we should have guards at the border. We should facilitate it. We should have a better work program. But when before the recession hit, half the business people that would come to my office, half the people that come to my office to talk about immigration, one wanted more immigrants because they didn't have enough workers, and the others wanted to send them all home. And the welfare state affects us as well, because it is true there are some that are not anxious to get off welfare and go to work for $6 or $7 an hour. And I think the welfare, the economic policies have a lot to do with the problem of immigration.
Let me go to my audience. A couple people have questions for you. The first person, a criticism. Go for it.
Congressman Paul, I agree with you 90% of the time. But I want to ask you, don't you think it's a little naive to believe that bringing the troops home and allowing Iran to have a nuclear weapon will make them abandon their desire for jihad and to enact a second Holocaust?
Who have they committed jihad against? You know, there's somebody, Robert Pape has done the research, the ultimate research on jihad and suicide terrorism around the world. And the Iranians have had nobody commit suicide terrorism. They are radical Islamists, and they follow Sharia law, and it's a place where you and I might not want to live. But they are not, they haven't gone 6,000 miles from their shores and invaded and occupied countries. That's where the resentment comes from. No, I do not worry about them. Like I said in the debate, they don't even know how to make enough gasoline. They don't have a Navy or an Air Force or anything. They are not capable of attacking anybody. And here we're putting up anti-ballistic missiles right up on the borders of Russia because the Iranians are about to launch weapons against us. It's the same type of war talk that preceded going into Iraq. There's too many people for too long have wanted to go against the war against the Iranians. We opened the door of trade with the Chinese, and we have done much better. And in Vietnam, we walked away from there, and that country has become unified, it's become westernized, and a lot more has been achieved in peace and in war. I believe the founders and the admonitions that if you trade with a country, you are very likely not to fight a war with them. And I want to stop the wars because we flat out can't afford them anymore.
All right, just quickly, you wanted to say something nice.
Dr. Paul, a quick question. When I try to spread the message, I get resistance because you do not support welfare or Medicare or universal health care. How do you address this? Because it does sound like we're cold.
Cold and cruel.
Yeah.
And just a quick answer. We're almost out of time.
Well, it takes a little bit longer, but a true free market is the only humanitarian system. Just look at the failure of the system today. The poor didn't get houses, and the poor are not going to get their checks because the monetary system has been ripped up, and the deficits don't matter, and they know they're not going to get it. So there is a clear failure of the do-gooders' effort to take care of the poor and have a safety net for everybody. So the facts are going to win that case for us. Morality should win it because everybody should have a right to their life and a right to keep the fruits of their labor.
Thank you, Dr. Ron Paul. I don't agree with you that it's so unlikely that some state might legalize polygamy, but we'll have to talk about that another time.